only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to 612 Vikings. I am your host, Dustin, once again for episode 3. And today I'm here with another special guest. I'm here with Dustin Baker. Go introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, you can call me the other Dustin now that I'm on your side of the fence. I write for Vikings Territory. I do my own YouTube thing on Vikes Now. I've been a Vikings fan since 1996. Once I was about 13 years old, and Randy Moss was drafted 2 years after that, and I was hooked ever since. And I am really excited, about this offseason in general, because we have like 4 large dominoes. And it feels like, in my opinion, that a quarterback is on the way from the draft. And I'm really excited to talk to you about all of this. So let's get to it.
Awesome. So we'll start off with the combine. Did you watch any of the combine this weekend?
Yeah, I'm grateful enough to have, writing about the Vikings as my full-time job. So I always have it on. It's kind of, the combine has got to me like a point how I used to treat the preseason, where I used to, when I was in my 20s, get really excited for it. And then you show it and you start to sit down and watch it and you're like, this kind of sucks. The combine doesn't absolutely suck. But when you have the 3 blue chip quarterbacks who go there and then just don't really do anything, it's like, so what is this? I did like seeing the edge rushers, seeing how fast those guys are. And then confirming that JJ McCarthy probably isn't just a QB wins stiff. That was encouraging. But I'm telling you, from here on out, regarding the NFL Combine, the thing that I'm going to look forward to most is the 2 press conferences by the Vikings leaders each year, because that, in terms of Vikings news, that's what we get from there. Everything else is ancillary, especially if the quarterbacks are trending to not even throw. It's like, this is kind of goofy. But it's not going to go away or anything like that. It's a cool event. It's just, I'm going to, taper my expectations about it. It's a cool get together, put it that way.
Sure. Yeah, I got 2 questions for you too on the combine. A, who stood out to you, whether that's, multiple guys, different positions, stuff like that. And B, what do you think about, the combine possibly being in Minneapolis too? Or Minneapolis.
Yeah, I want to start with that one. Now that would bring my interest right back in a hurry, because I'm fairly certain that I could attend, get some credentials and go. And it's cool that it almost lasts a whole damn week. So you could make go from Tuesday and then just ended today on Sunday. So yeah, I think people like it in Indianapolis, and I won't have any big problems if they keep it there. But whether it's the draft or the combine, Minneapolis, I think, has a nice enough facility to start to get, nibble at those types of things. I think where the powers that be get paranoid is the winter and the cold. We're so used to it that we're like, hey, bring it on. But the rest of the world's like, oof. But I will maintain, aside from Vikings football, this winter in the Midwest and Minnesota and South Dakota, we had like 6 weeks of it, and that was it. You might recall it didn't snow until Christmas Day. And then by the week and a half into February, it was like in the 40s and 50s. So my little soapbox is I swear to God, we only had 6 weeks of winter. Who stood out to me at the combine? If the Vikings absolutely ignore my request and don't draft a quarterback in round 1, I liked what I saw from Dallas Turner at the combine, and he solidified that I would want them to draft him if they're going to go edge rusher, because we both know they need edge rushers. And then when you look at all the tea leaves, I still hold out hope that they will trade up somehow to number 2 or number 3, because I really want them to draft Drake May. That's my guy in this cycle. But realistically, that's going to be tricky. I think we learned from JJ McCarthy, or at least confirmed, that he's gettable. He's realistic for the Vikings, because even if he, let's say, gets talked into the top 5, well, the Vikings can probably trade with the Chargers at number 5. They'd be more willing to do business with the Vikings than the Raiders or the Broncos, who are other teams that could be trading up. So I liked that McCarthy the moment wasn't too big for him at the combine. He had like 1 incompletion where people bitched. It's like, really, we're going to do that. I love the fact that McCarthy just turned 21. And I think Vikings fans fell in love with him because he's the compromise quarterback, where you can re-sign Kirk for a year or 2, let this dude who just turned 21 marinate for a year or 2, and then you keep the competitive rebuild firmly alive. I don't know, right after the college football season, if I was totally enthralled by McCarthy because I stupidly kind of just assumed he didn't do much. But once I started doing my homework, I realized watching the tape, okay, this guy can be good. I'm not sure if he's a week 1 starter, if the Vikings said goodbye to Kirk. But I liked what I saw from Dallas Turner on the edge. And then J.J. McCarthy proved to me that if he is eventually the Vikings quarterback, that you and I and the rest of Purple Nation can get excited.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was kind of watching a little bit of the quarterbacks. I had to work all weekend, so I got a little bit of the starts of all the past 3 days. So I kind of watched highlights of Bo Nix. I thought he looked pretty well in the passing drills. I mean, it's pretty hard to not suck at those as well. Especially to guys that are NFL caliber wide receivers. They're in the combine for the reason. But yeah, Bo Nix I kind of like. A lot of Vikings fans don't really care for him, but just precision passing, stuff like that, I thought he looked pretty well in. And I kind of thought of this earlier today too. Not instead of the combine, but to add to the combine too. I feel like they should add for like quarterback drills, like what they have in the Pro Bowl, all the fun games and all that. Like really test your accuracy with all that. I feel like that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah,
But
I'm on record now for like 5 years. I think the Pro Bowl should not even be a thing. It should still be voted on and people still put on their resumes. But I swear to God, they should have like the football Olympics as the Pro Bowl so that and promote the shit out of it. So it's really cool to figure out who's got the strongest arm in the NFL. Every year, you want to figure out who the fastest guy is, and then that guy gets like a trophy. I really think individually we should do that for the Pro Bowl. They kind of do it a little bit, but I'm talking about really making it a big deal, like so that player can have that crown. One other thing that came to mind on the combine, on Drake May, even though he didn't really do anything, I loved hearing him talk. I'm one of these weirdos that likes to hear the quarterback talk so I could figure out, all right, is this guy mature enough? I want to see if he, people talk about the it factor on the field. I like to see if he has the it factor by the way he sounds and the way he looks, if he has that charisma. And Drake May kind of feels like a real polite, good old boy. And I think that he could lead the Vikings successfully. And then also Michael Penix looked pretty damn good. I'm just paranoid about his injury resume.
Oh yeah, sure. I know everybody on Twitter too was saying, oh, he has a really good or strong, what was it, physical or whatever he took. All the medicals were really good. So we'll see how that all pans out. It's kind of a risk factor that you got to take too, is all the injury history to him.
Yeah.
Because the past 6 years, 4 of them have been season ending. So
my big beef there is we're finally going to, I think, draft a quarterback for the first time in 10 years since Teddy. And if we're going to do it, I don't want to do anything half-assed. I don't want to get the one guy who's injured all the time, or at least was before last year. He's going to be 24. So I kind of said this last year when people got enamored with Hendon Hooker. I'm like, really? We're going to draft the quarterback that's 25? I really want them to, like last year, I wanted them to draft Stroud. I have it in writing. That was my draft endorsement of VikingsTerritory.com. I want them to put their heart into this decision and not have it like, well, it's going to be Penix, but we hope that both of his knees are good. I want it to be kind of like the rest of the world does it, like the Bills trading for Josh Allen. It's my goal that they don't just cut corners and say, you know what, we're going to wait until round 2 and get Michael Pratt, and you're going to like it. I want it to be a big, bold thing that can't go wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know there's a report too of the Vikings kind of wanting to take a quarterback, if one's available, that they want to go with a quarterback that they really like. Otherwise, they're not going in quarterback at all. In the first round, that is.
Yeah, I get that.
And it does make sense, and that's something I'd prefer. I know the league is pretty high on J.J. McCarthy, so I could see him going in the top 5 as well. So, Do the Vikings even have the draft? I shouldn't say do they have the draft capital, but do you think that it's possible, or what's the likeliness of the Vikings trading into, like, let's say the top 3, like they're rumored to?
Well, if I would have joined your show last weekend, I would be a little bit more excited about it because there was reporting from, I think, masslive.com, the Boston Tribune or something like that. I think it was Mass Live that said the Patriots are probably going to stick and pick at number 3. I think Jared Mayo wants, whether it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels. So that was depressing because I've thought for about a month that the Patriots have a lot of roster needs and they could trade the pick to the Vikings and get 2 firsts and 2 seconds. And then they could draft J.J. McCarthy if they want at number 11. But it sounds like the Patriots are going to stick and pick. I still think if there is a will, there is a way. Although I don't see Washington or New England trading back, so then you're kind of like, well, what's going to happen? But I truly believe that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah won't be afraid to let his nuts dangle a little bit when it comes to finding the quarterback. But I'm with you. I don't want the, well, hey, shit, we got to go pick a quarterback. Boom, we're going to pick Michael Pratt. Let's do it. No, I want it to be thought out. I want it to be bold. I really wish there was. I hope something comes out in the next couple of weeks where it walks the Patriots back, where it says, or that they sign Cousins or something, where it's like, oh, they don't need to draft a quarterback then, because that was really the spot I'd circled. If neither one of those teams are going to do business, then you have to start to hope that Drake May or Jaden Daniels somehow falls to that Charger spot at number 5. So yes, I do think it is realistic that Kwesi will do it. He'll spend 2 firsts and 2 seconds. But you have to find the right trade partner, and I think that's the tricky part right now.
Yeah, I can totally see it too. I mean, this has probably been one of the funnest off seasons that I've been, experiencing with the Vikings. All the rumors, quarterback rumors. Everybody blows it out proportion to, and it's just super interesting. Who will draft, and I don't know. It's just a lot of different avenues, especially with Kirk leaving and.
Yeah, there's a rumor quarterback-wise for everything. Justin Fields was from ESPN article today that the Vikings could be looking at him. We've had Sam Darnold, we've had Zach Wilson, we've had Baker Mayfield, we've had Russell Wilson. Any quarterback that is at least quasi-startable has been in the Vikings rumor mill. And then for Cousins' sake, he's been in, certainly the Falcons, the Steelers, the Patriots, and then nibbled around the Raiders, Broncos, Dolphins, and then the 49ers until Kyle Shanahan smacked that down when he said Purdy's their guy this week.
Yeah, that was kind of bleeding into, the next topic too, which goes perfectly because I was kind of thinking earlier too that with Kirk Cousins, there's all these suitors that he has at age 36. And before he signed with Minnesota in 2018, there was the Vikings and the Jets, and that was pretty much it.
And I think the Broncos took a sniff at that time too.
Yeah. So it's interesting that 29, 28-year-old Kirk Cousins had 2-3 suitors, and now 36 coming off Achilles has, 5, 6, 7 suitors. And I don't know, it's just super interesting that's how the league works sometimes. And, with all these rumors about quarterbacks, will we get Baker Mayfield? Are we re-signing Kirk Cousins? Zach Wilson, just all these different quarterbacks, Justin Fields too. I don't know how I feel about that. I wouldn't necessarily hate that, but I wouldn't be the most excited in the world either. But let's say we move on from Cousins this year. Who is your top, I guess, free agent quarterback that you would like the Vikings to sign? What kind of contract would that look like?
Well, you probably won't like this answer, but none of them. I don't want any. I don't want to. I've done this my whole Vikings life, where they go find, hey, we know we can make Russell Wilson good again, or Baker Mayfield's our guy. He can have further reclamation. I'm done with doing that. I guess if gun to my head, Russell Wilson for $1 million or $2 because that guy was really, really good before he wasn't. But I certainly wouldn't pound the table for it. I just don't believe the Vikings need a bridge quarterback because if you are thinking that way, just keep Cousins. If you really want a bridge quarterback, just pay Cousins the extra 10, 15 million on top of what you'd pay the bridge guy. And then let's see if we can actually win the Super Bowl. And then my other contingency on the bridge quarterback thing, if they're going to draft JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix, we have a bridge quarterback at home in Nick Mullins. I know that people are sour on him because he threw a lot of interceptions, but I swear to God, and I've said this to you before when you were on my show, that the Vikings defense went to the pits of hell the very moment Nick Mullins took over. That was against the Bengals. It was that fourth quarter. It just died in that at like 2:30 p.m. that day, and then it never, ever recovered. And I will say this until people stop caring, that the Vikings defense didn't die. Nick Mullins wouldn't have had to be as risky at all the times. And I believe that if the Brian Flores defense that we saw in the middle of the season kept going in December into January, the Vikings probably would have ended up with a right side up record on Nick Mullins' watch. So if they're saying, you know what, we're going to do the bridge quarterback thing, we're drafting Michael Penix, and they monkey around in August and they're like, well, Michael Penix isn't going to be ready until, we're 2-5, then let's just go with Nick Mullins. I know he can throw the ball. I mean, there were times where they got backed into a corner where it was like 3rd and 22. And I'd say to myself, that's fine. Nick Mullins can convert that. And then he would do it. And I never felt that. I never felt that way with Cousins. It's because Mullins just didn't give an F at any time. So if they're going to do a bridge quarterback thing, certainly draft the quarterback that they love now. And then I wouldn't have a problem with them starting Nick Mullins in week 1, because you already know if you're going with a rookie quarterback in the bridge thing, your ceiling for that 2024 is probably 7-10, 8-9, just like Bridgewater in 2014, where we were really excited that they finished 7-9, and it was a catapult to the 2015 NFC North crown.
Yeah. I really wish that Josh Dobbs would have panned out too. Those 2.5 games were super fun. And, it just never happened that way. We were all excited about Josh Dobbs. We got his jerseys in the stores. He was all excited about that too, and just never came into fruition. And, it sucks, but that it's kind of a fun experiment that Kevin O'Connell got to, I guess, put his hands on, just a mobile quarterback. He was accurate off the field, if that makes sense, just not on the field. Got a lot of people injured, which wasn't fun. He got Jefferson injured. I don't know. It just wasn't a fun ride after the 2.5 games that he had. But
he couldn't throw outside the numbers. And almost every quarterback that you evaluate coming out of college, if they can't do that, I mean, even Bridgewater struggled to do that consistently. That's the number one thing I look for when I'm watching the college scouting report. Are they surgical to an extent as a college player outside the numbers? If they can do that, they're going to be able to figure out the middle of the field. And Josh Dobbs couldn't do that. And that's why Addison just went to sleep when Dobbs came in. And then he and Jefferson really didn't even have time to find chemistry because he threw that shitty pass against those Broncos or Raiders, one of the two. So Dobbs, I fully bought into the Dobbs mania, just like the rest of you. But it really was weird during last season, not just the Vikings. Every backup quarterback was really good, or the ones that were good for about 2 games. And then we figured out why they were backup quarterbacks.
Yeah. Just like, what was his name for the Bengals?
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning. Yep. He had that game, and this is why you shouldn't never cut me, and then just kind of went downhill from there. And we all enjoyed it. But speaking of free agents and all that from before, half of our team is practically free agents. I know half of those will also re-sign probably with the Vikings, but there's a lot of free agents out there, a lot of good ones. Who's kind of on your radar, top 3, top 5, just a couple free agents that you think the Vikings should sign, that would help the Vikings, whether that's to make the playoffs, go all in. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Let's see here. So I want to point out that right now, I'm pulling up this article. Every year for VikingsTerritory.com, I write a free agency handbook so that maybe like the casual fans who are sitting down coming back to the off season can realize what's been going on. And I use the same skeleton each year, like players that could be cut, players that could be traded. And I just delete all of the introduction and all of the analysis, and then, make it applicable for this year. When I wrote this thing 1 year ago, the Vikings, I had written, they are underwater by $24 million. They were in the red this late into free agency or the offseason. And so they were 24 million negative last year. Now they're 36 million positive. So I really don't personally think when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah took over that the free agencies were boring. And he did that on a condensed budget. So now we have a $60 million swing. And I'm really excited to see how they spend that money. There should be more players, or at least higher caliber players. So right away, my primary endorsement is an edge rusher, because especially if they don't get Danielle Hunter back, they need 2 of those. You cannot skimp at edge rusher, or, hey, we're starting Patrick Jones, baby. You can't do that, because otherwise you're almost tanking. So I want them to, whether or not they resign Hunter, I want them to bring Hunter back for 3 years and $66 million or something like that. But Bryce Huff on the New York Jets, my little speech on him, it's really weird. When you pull up any advanced pass rush metric, he's right up there in like about 4 different ones. Yeah. And he played all 17 games for the Jets, but he started 0 games. And so he's just like Harrison Phillips 2 years ago for the Bills, where everybody knew he was good. He just needed a team to start for. And Bryce Huff is going to be coveted. He'll probably get 15, 16, 17 million per year. But I want that to be for the Vikings because you can lock him down for 3 or 4 years. He's not very old. I know he can start. And by the time, let's say you lock him in for 3 years and 48 million or something, that deal is going to be cheap by the time we get down to its expiration. So Bryce Huff has the youth on his side, which is usually a quasi characteristic when he signs free agency. He's not going to be as expensive as Hunter. And he should be really hungry because he hasn't started for the Jets. So that's my top guy. The only problem with him is general managers are probably all saying that speech that I just said, and there's 32 teams. So there could be a bidding war. And then I have a couple boring ones. Rashid Shaheed for the New Orleans Saints. He's only going to cost about 2 or 3 million. And he was really productive for the Saints. You can kind of use him in a gadget variety. He was a Pro Bowl punt returner. And he's also right in that age range that Kwesi usually seeks for free agency. And I feel that the Vikings need a WR3. I think it can be this guy. Now, they will examine whether or not Jalen Naylor is cut out for it. If he can stay healthy, they could just bring Brandon Powell back and try to shove him into the WR3 hole. I don't think they'll bring Osborne back, but Kwesi showed last year that locker room loyalty and stuff is really important. So I'd say Rashid Shaheed there. And then what else? Defensive tackle. Christian Wilkins would really be shooting for the stars, and that would be the big signing because it's going to
be a nice home run signing too.
Yeah, it costs at least 20 million. But we do have the Brian Flores angle there. Brian Flores I think that was his first draft pick in Miami, and the guy has not disappointed. So if they're going to spend big, nobody would be mad about Christian Wilkins. There's this other guy, real quick, named Maurice Hurst. He is a free agent from the Browns. He's kind of a journeyman. He's 28. But I swear to God, anytime you pull up that guy's PFF, like it's 76, 75, 74, like over and over and over. And he's just like the Huff thing that nobody really gives him starts. He played 40% of snaps for the Browns this year, and he still was able to notch a 90 or a 79 PFF grade. So I guess I'm accustomed to Vikings signing free agents that are not really expensive. And I think Maurice Hurst would make sense because he'd be, in my opinion, better than Shamar Stephen for 3 years or Jonathan Bullard for 2 years. And Hurst he's a balanced defensive tackle where he can stop the run and rush the passer. So obviously I'd rather have Christian Wilkins, but if they do the Vikings thing from the past 10 years where you find some of the bargain bin guys, he's a dude named Maurice Hurst, and he's a free agent from the Browns.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Now, like 2 years ago, for defensive tackle wise, I would have definitely said like Matt Ioannidis. I really liked his game, a couple of years ago. Now he's just older and, just on the cusp of retiring, whether he does or not, good locker room guy, good leader. I thought his play on the field was pretty good too.
I agree.
But other than that, if we do end up losing KJ Osborne, our wide receiver room will be very top heavy. I think, you got JJ Addison, and then it just plummets. And
and then no Hawkinson either.
Yeah, Hawkinson for a couple of weeks. It seems like now, or up to a month too. But other than that, I haven't seen the whole list of free agent wide receivers. We're definitely not going to get. Yeah, we're not going to get any of the top tier guys, which is fine. And we don't need any of those top tier guys. We need a good third down guy, kind of like a Jarius Wright, KJ Osborne, the first, or I guess second and third year of his career.
And the draft is deep too. For what we need, WR3, the draft on late day 2, early day 3, there is a lot of dudes. You never know if they'd be ready week 1. But there's a lot that's kind of the sweet spot for wide receiver after the big 2 in the first round is there are a lot of guys that can be got in the 3rd and 4th round that can probably play significantly as rookies.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really watch too much college football, so I don't know everybody's names, how good they are, stuff like that. But I've heard that this draft class, just for every position is pretty deep, which is nice to hear. I trust, whoever says that and, just does their work, your film and homework, stuff like that. But other than that, running back wise, with Alexander Madison cut, Our running back group is kind of thin as well. We don't have Cam Akers back quite yet. Ty Chandler, he played really well last year. We got CJ Ham, if you want to count him as a running back. He's been playing, running back pretty much this last year, with pass protection too. So a guy in the draft, some of you guys know that I'm a big Badgers fan, so I'm really pounding on the table for Braylon Allen.
Hey, I'm writing about him tomorrow. The article the article is going to be called "This is who should replace Alexander Madison." I love his size, his speed, and his youth. And if I get all three of those, boom, sign me up. And he's a big bastard. I mean, he's like what, 6'3", 230, 240 or something? 245.
A little over 240, yeah.
Yeah, and you think about the salt and pepper of Ty Chandler and him. So yes, you and I are in complete agreement. I think most mocks have him in round 3 or so. So the Vikings would have to get creative to find a third rounder. But it's really cool that you brought that up, because I spent the weekend trying to figure out, now with Madison gone, who I want them to draft if they don't go, buy Saquon Barkley or something like that. And I settled on the way that we can contrast Ty Chandler. You have Braylon Allen. I love the fact that he's 20 or whatever. Or did he just turn 21 or is he 20?
I think he's only 20.
That's so weird. Yeah, and I hadn't realized that he was such a bruiser. When I saw his specs, like 6'3", 245, I was like, Jesus. So yeah, sign me up for that and pair him with Ty Chandler. We are in complete agreement.
Dude, I know, and he's good in the pass game too. He's kind of,
which is weird. Those big guys usually aren't.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of like an AJ Dillon in a way too. Yeah. Big bruiser, decent in pass protection, pass game as well. So that's definitely someone that I'm going to be pounding the table for. Just as a Badgers fan, anybody else we can take too.
And imagine him, like Ty Chandler doesn't have problems at the goal line like Madison did, but imagine the havoc that Braylon Allen, if he turns out to be good on the goal line, it should be automatic. First and goal from the 2. All right, give it to Braylon. We're good to go.
Yeah, for sure. I like I said, I would absolutely love that pick. But that's all I have for you today. If you have any other questions, comments, whatever you want to add, feel free. Otherwise, we can end it here in a couple seconds here.
Yeah, I think the thing that I will end on, because we're going to get a verdict in about 1 week, I spent all of January flip-flopping on my prediction on Kirk Cousins, and I finally settled about 3 weeks ago. I don't think he's coming back, and I know that will disappoint a lot of Vikings fans. I won't be mad if he comes back. I'll be like, all right, they really do think they can win. Let's give it another shot. But I really don't think he will, because if you look at the way the books are structured, you're going to pay Jefferson between 30 and 35 million per year. Hawkinson's the highest paid tight end in history. Christian Darrisaw this time next year, we're going to be talking all about his deal. I still think they're going to bring back Danielle Hunter. I know that they could sign everybody, including Cousins, and then put some of the pain into the future years with void contract stuff. But I really think that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, when he realized that Jefferson is going to be habitually all-pro, I think this was always set up so that when Cousins' contract expired, you're going to draft a rookie and get away with paying that guy cheap for 5 years right at the time that Jefferson's money kicks in. I think that was always the plan. And that evidence, plus all of the Falcon stuff that we've seen from the combine and stuff, I believe that Cousins will not return to the Vikings. And the only reason I say that so boldly at the end of the show is because I spent a lot of time agonizing over my prediction on this, because every day you turn around and a new Vikings player or coach loves Kirk and wants him back. And then it's weird that you have like the team's leaders like Justin Jefferson saying he loves the guy. And then here's Dustin Baker saying like, nope, they're not going to resign him. So yeah, to an extent, they're going to have to go against the grain for what players want. But I believe we know that Cousins has the acumen for always getting guaranteed money, always getting fat stacks of cash from free agency. So it's my opinion that because Jefferson's money is going to be otherworldly, this is the time for the Vikings to use a quarterback on a rookie deal, and you can link Jefferson's prime and his massive money making with Drake May or JJ McCarthy, and that part of the budget will be relatively cheap. So that is my closing argument.
Yeah, for sure. To add to that too, Kevin O'Connell, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was saying, how much he loves Kirk. It almost sounded like, there was a deal in place or something like that, something behind the scenes. And, just at the combine, he was
Yeah.
talking, and you could definitely hear the different tune in his voice. Just, oh, yeah, we're letting him test free agency. We're letting him do this, do that. I love Kirk. I noticed he was saying a lot of like was in his sentences. He was a great player for us, stuff like that. So it's making me think that he won't be back. And with that price point that he's possibly looking for, I don't know if the general public knows about it yet, but it's I don't if it's like a $35 million, 40 million, 45, whatever he's asking for, the Vikings have that fine line in the sand that they're not willing to cross. And if Kirk goes past that, kick rocks, dude. Well, thank you for being a Viking for us the past 2 years, but for the Vikings the past 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting to see how this all shakes out once March 13th rolls around.
Just imagine, I was talking to Yannick Eckhart from Germany, who writes for Vikings Territory. Think about how weird it's going to feel like a week from now, 2 weeks from now, even in September, when Cousins is not the quarterback. Like, I'm not talking about, hey, we're going to miss him, we love him to death. I'm not talking about that. He's very cool. He was very good for the Vikings. But it's almost like we're getting our team back, like in a weird way. Like, I don't know if fans will universally unite around the new quarterback, whoever it is, but it's been such a Cousins-driven enterprise for 6 years. When I start to think about how it's going to feel if we get the alert that says, hey, Cousins to the Falcons, 3 years, 150 million or some shit, it's going to be a strange feeling. And I've tried to understand why that is. And to me, the only thing I can use to describe it is it feels like we're getting our team back. Like, I don't know how, if that makes any sense at all.
I definitely feel that.
Not that Cousins was bad, but I think it's a fan driven thing where we can all get back to like, all right, we are going to be JJ McCarthy fans, baby. We don't have to bitch about the quarterback every day. Like, it feels like we're getting everybody back in the team together again. It's weird. And I hope that hopefully that resonates with some of the fans that are watching.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if we traded for like Patrick Mahomes, I feel like fans are still going to complain about that we gave up too much or whatever. If we win the Super Bowl, they're going to find something. I can't even think of anything, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But other than that, I got nothing else for you, man. I appreciate you joining the show. Make sure you guys go check out Dustin's work with Vikings Territory. Writes awesome articles. Has another podcast, Vikings podcast. And we'll end on that note. Thank you so much for joining, man.
Yeah, you let me know when you want me to come back. All right.
For sure. Sounds good.
Yeah,
we'll see you guys later, and SKOL Vikes.